Hello and welcome to BharatShakti.in. I'm Brigadier Chatterjee, editor BharatShakti.in. We're going to be talking about Ukraine. We've had a couple of episodes on Ukraine battle, but let's go a little further. And today we will talk primarily about air power utilization in Ukraine. Now, in the recent ongoing conflict that we find there between the Russians and the Ukrainians, we've observed that despite having an overwhelming superiority in terms of numbers, in terms of technology, of all three arms, I would say the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, uh, Russia seems to have employed very limited elements of its forces, especially the Air Force. Now, when I talk about, let's say, the Army, we haven't seen their latest tanks being employed. Even when we talk about their other equipment being utilized, like precision weapons, if we talk about cyber warfare, they have not really utilized the full potential that they can possibly let loose on the Ukrainians. So, what's the reason for all this? And we will focus today primarily on the Air Force. To focus on the Air Force, I have with me Air Commodore SP Singh. Air Commodore SP Singh is no stranger to our viewers. Welcome, Air Commodore SP Singh. But let me just first give a little bit of his biography. He's done about more than 3,000 hours of flying fighter. He's commanded Su-30 Air Base. Right now, he's with the Center for Air Power Studies. And, well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, sir. Thank you so very much for giving me an opportunity to speak on this recent ongoing operations in Russia and Ukraine, and especially about the air power, which is obviously the domain that we would like to know about. And very rightly, sir, you brought out that there have been much lesser utilization as available, as observed by everyone, of the forces that the Russia enjoys by overwhelming majority over Ukraine. Thank you so much for inviting me, sir.
Right, Air Commodore, my first question is very simple. Can we have a little bit of a comparison, an overview really of the strengths of the Russians and the Ukrainians, limited to the air power, of course?
Absolutely, sir. I think before we proceed of analyzing as to what air power has been utilized, how much and why limited has been used, it is very essential to know what kind of differential exists between the two forces. So first, to start with, I must tell the Russian Air Force, one of the largest Air Force in the world, or the if you compare the Air Forces with the combined NATO and the US and this kind of thing, or the Chinese. However, otherwise, Russian Air Force itself is one of the largest Air Force in the world, with about 4,000 aircrafts, including all types of fighter, bombers, special role aircrafts, helicopters, and almost about 500 plus drones, which are like UAVs or unmanned combat aerial UCAVs. With this, the additional air power that is available to them is of the Russian Navy and Army, which also have substantial number of aircrafts, mainly the helicopters amounting to more than about 800 aircrafts with them. With this, when we compare to Ukraine, with about almost 5,000 aircrafts of aerial platforms of the Russia, Ukraine has just about 250 aircrafts with about 100 UAVs and UCAVs. And out of these UAVs, UCAVs, most of are from countries like US, Turkey, and Israel. So if I look at it, just the number itself, sir, there seems to be absolutely no comparison between the two forces. Ukraine is almost about 1/20th of the force of the Russian Air Force. Just to talk about now the technology difference that you talked about, so most of the Russian aircrafts are fourth generation, and some of them are fifth generation aircraft. Fourth generation aircrafts like Su-35, MiG-31, Su-30s, and a large number of host of other aircraft like MiG-29, MiG-29 upgrades, Su-27s also on their inventory. Most of the aircrafts are, each fleet has about 100 plus aircrafts, with about almost Su-23 about 200 plus aircrafts. The fifth generation fighter aircrafts are like Su-57 and MiG-35, which are about 20-25 aircrafts. They also have a large number of bomber aircrafts, out to TU series, which are the latest. Then they have airborne warning control system, A-50, IL-80. They also have flight refueling aircrafts of IL-78 series, heavy lift aircrafts of AN-22, IL-26 and Mi-26 series. A large fleet of attack helicopters, which are now being primarily used in this war, of Kamo-52, Mi-35, Mi-28, Mi-24, Mi-17, 1B, V5, UAV UCAV of Bayraktar Corps, and the Su series of UCAVs. Then they have Orion series of UCAV. Now there's a large number of aircraft that you can see that Russia has a fleet which can be employed in one go and can decimate any of the opposing force. They can create a full-fledged, they have flooded the sky with aircraft. This is the kind of strength they have. Against the Ukraine, which has just about Su-27 MiG-29 series of aircraft and helicopter series of MiG-24 and Mi-8s. By the way, I just want to tell my viewers, sir, that most of the aircraft of the Russian series, that is Su series and MiG series, the Indian Air Force already has most of them, and we have been using them for years together. So with this overwhelming differential between the two that exists between in terms of number and technology, as also in terms of the precision weapons that the Russia has, they have not seemed to be using most of these in the war that is ongoing. This is the kind of a differential which exists. I'm not talking about the air defense systems. I'm also not talking about the cyber that you touched upon. I'm also not talking about the space elements which they have. That also enhances the air power utilization. So it's purely in terms of the air power itself, there's a huge differential.
Right, thank you. I think there's an absolute overwhelming superiority. In fact, why say overwhelming superiority? There is no comparison really between the two forces. But what, Ekamoto, I would like you to touch upon now, maybe Russia has that kind of arsenal available, which it could have used, but what has it ultimately gone down to using as far as utilization in the Ukraine is concerned?
Sir, first of all, I want to just take about 10 seconds about telling about the objectives which I understand they had.
Okay.
As I understand from this, the objective of the special operation, it is not an invasion that we understand, is of the basically ensuring that the Ukraine follows the lines which have been drawn by the Russia. That is in terms of not allowing the NATO to come in anywhere to close proximity so that their secrecy doesn't get compromised. This is one of the major objectives. And once this was not agreed to, Russia had to undertake certain special operations to make sure. But during this certain operation, we must understand that most of the area of Ukraine is a part of the that is erstwhile USSR. And Russia is very conscious of this. Whatever destruction takes place because of the air operation or the otherwise operation, rebuild will also be required to be done. So they are right now, actually, in my opinion, they are only targeting the most of the military targets. They have to denude the military power of the Ukraine so that it comes online and understand the requirement of Russia and agrees to the consent. So with this, the precision forces have been applied. While taking on the targets in the Ukraine, a large number of Air Force elements, if they are deployed, then the devastation is going to be very high. That the caliber of the weapons is so high that they can devastate cities too well. I don't think Russia has that objective. It doesn't want to destroy cities and the major communication center or major the industrial centers. It just wants to reduce the military power of the Ukraine as it exists. And for that, a lot of precision is required. Targets have been chosen very carefully. So you will see that in most of these things, targeting, maximum of the attack captors have been used. And there's a reason for this. Why only attack captor? Why not the fighter? The fighters have been used for a very, very limited extent, that too in the region of over the southern portion, where the air defense elements of the Ukraine are existing. In other portion of the Ukraine, there are hardly any air defense elements. So Russia has very carefully chosen what platforms to use and what weapons to use and how much of damage they want to cause. I think this has been the overall reason for which this limited air power has been used, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're quite correct, Commodore, because they have utilized only a very small part of the arsenal that they have. And of course, the reasons that you gave for it seem to be purely logical. But let's go a little further. Let's talk about Ukraine. They're, of course, playing a defensive battle. They haven't really gone inside the Russian territory and tried to attack a target there with their air power, whatever limited air power they have. But how have they played the defensive battle? What have they got to use in that defensive battle, and how has it gone?
Yes, sir. About the air wall defensive battle, both offensive and defensive elements make the requisite portion of the role in terms of achieving the air supremacy over the areas. Now, sir, in this case, since the Ukraine is only playing a defensive battle, we are not seeing any attack coming from there, and there's no need because the special operations are from Russia's side. Now, I just want to take a minute, sir. The erstwhile USSR, when the breakdown took place in 1991, the only air defense elements and the elements that are left in Ukraine were covering the southern portion over the Baltic Sea area. These are primarily ensuring that there is no invasion or any attack from the US forces, which are most of them are fleet bound, carrier-based air force. So this kind of, to avoid that, the large amount of air defense elements are put there, which included mainly S-300 PMU, then 9K-37 SAMs, there were 5 units, and some shoulder fire missiles of S-130. That is all the air defense which was placed in the area covering the southern flank. There was almost hardly any air defense put in the eastern, western, or northern part. North itself, Russia is itself covering north and east, so there was no requirement as felt at that time. Now, with this limited air defense capability, now the Ukraine is in no position to counter any attack. Now look at the S-300. This has been created by the Russia itself. So they know the ins and outs of this system, how to jam it, how to nullify the effect of this system. They have been using this SEAD operation, that is suppression of enemy air defense operation, and the very limited DEAD operation, that is destruction of enemy air defense. So in this case, the fighter operations which are taking place are only in the southern portion. That is where the S-300 are lying. And there are only just about 2 units. Whereas in the northern portion and the eastern portion, there have been only the shoulder fire missiles or some SAMs available, where the helicopter operation has taken the lead because they can keep safe from there. The fighter operation need not be taken there because there is no threat to them. So in this is what I was saying, the air defense itself is a very, very weak air defense against such a formidable air force that Russia has got. And another thing which comes out is, sir, this air defense setup system. The Ukraine doesn't have a full-fledged air defense setup like we have in India, ISCCS. There's nothing like that existing. They are actually working, almost all of them, in autonomous mode. That means there is no coordination available between a force in the south and the north, and there's no connectivity between them. Limited radars, limited air defense, that is how the status is as of the present. And that's how you see minimum damage has been caused to the Russian aircraft, and they've been able to go through their air operation as they want.
Right, next question, I just have 2 aspects. One is, of course, you've given it partly already, your assessment of the likely reasons why the Russians have not used their full force. The second thing that I want from you is, at some stage, Russia may want to push its offensive a little faster. It's already gone too slow. They might change their mind. They might want to push it a little faster. And do you see a bigger role for the Russian air power at that stage?
Absolutely, sir. Sir, as we have seen, the primacy of the air power and air war was brought in during the Iraq war, where it was very clear that the air attacks will pulverize the forces on ground and defenses, and thereafter the army and the naval forces can move in and do whatever they wish to do, and without much opposition. And this is what exactly we saw happen. And thereafter, a large number of wars have seen Kosovo war and the Afghanistan war, everywhere. It has been followed. The air war is preceding the main battle which takes place on the ground. In this case, the same could have taken place. It is very surprising that the air power in that manner has not been used by the Russian Air Force or Russian Army, to the sense that they could have pulverized most of the air defense and they have to move the land forces where it could have been without any opposition. The only opposition then left for the tanks would have been anti-tank missiles or the whatever leftover UAVs, UCAS. That has not happened. And this is very, very surprising to see. But I think, sir, the main objective must have been to cause minimum damage, as I covered, and not to go all-out war against air war against the thing to pulverize. And that's why playing it. If you look at Kyiv, sir, example I'll give you. The Kyiv, when the armed forces army reached and all, they only put out things encircling all around the Kyiv, and not so much of damage was done to Kyiv, unlike it was done in Kharkiv. So there is a difference in the kind of objectives for each city they have and overall objective. But I feel, sir, at this stage, the way NATO is supplying arms to them, NATO is covertly giving arms and support to them, there will be a need to carry out a very, very effective air operation at some stage of this war, to make sure that thereafter the land forces are able to go in for the final offensive and are able to capture the desired objective as they are. But this will have to come in maybe in a day's time, maybe in 1 week's time. This will have to be done.
In fact, Commodore, I would say that Russia has allowed itself to be drawn into a prolonged land battle because of underutilization of the air power that it has got. So the original objectives did not work out in the time frame that they should have worked out. Especially, when they were thinking in terms of, and all of us are, I think, on the same page as far as that analysis is concerned, that they were thinking in terms of a swift offensive and reaching perhaps the capital city far too early than as compared to where they are stuck right now. Now, if you can give us a little more about what is the overall effect of this underutilization of assets and holding back certain amount of equipment on the whole operations.
I think, sir, you are absolutely right. I couldn't have said it better than what you have covered. This is the essence of the entire operation that I am seeing. Sir, it is very surprising. I'll cover just two major aspects of this war, sir. First is that we understood that air power has not been used effectively, just only for some overwhelming enemy air defenses. The air attacks that I see which have been carried out are mainly concerned in destroying certain land objectives in terms of the ammo dumps or the kind of certain military installations that are all going to be effective. But nothing much has been seen against the air defense that they have already had. This is very surprising because the air operation basic tenet first is to carry out C8 and D8 operation. Like I covered, suppression of enemy air defense by the electronic methods and destruction of the enemy air defense by the physical weapon dropping of those radars, those air defense units which are deployed like S-300 or any other, which doesn't seem to have been done. The second part of this operation, which is lacune, which has come up, is there's been a huge supply of NATO arms and equipment through the route through Poland, which is an open route. And this route has not been interdicted. That's what is very surprising to me when I see that there's been no interdiction effort in the western part of the Ukraine where the entire supply chain is continuing. And the entire, now they're like the anti-tank missiles, Javelin, which came through the route, have not been interdicted en route. And this is what is causing a huge trouble for the Russian army. Russian army is suffering because of this. And this is what is inexplicable, and it is surprising that these tenets have not been utilized properly. I hope that these things are used in the effective manner, that they draw out the correct result. Otherwise, Russia will keep getting drawn into this. Russian army will suffer a lot of losses because the opposition will continue at the kind of thing. And the demand that NATO has been placed by the Ukraine of creating a no-fly zone. I am surprised as to why this no-fly zone has not been created by Russia itself. They have the entire wherewithal. They can have 24 hours combat air patrol over the entire Ukrainian airspace and control the airspace, which has not been done. So these, in the absence of these essential tenets of the air power being used, the land forces are getting dragged into a very long-drawn battle. They are suffering and it's becoming a very dragged war, unlike what is planned as swift and quick war, which has not happened. But this is what my analysis is.
Right. Thank you, Commodore SP Singh. Thank you so much for, I think, very lucid account on the operations in Ukraine, and especially the air operations part of it. I do agree with you to a point that they have held back their resources, but how much will they actually deploy as the days go by? I have my doubts about it, because there must be reasons about trying to keep certain aspects of these equipment. Once they're used, they will give away their characteristics, they will give away certain security aspects which go along with this equipment. Maybe those are the reasons best known to the Russians themselves. Thanks for joining us, Commodore.
Thank you, sir. It was always a pleasure, and great talking to you on these issues, sir. Thank you so much.
And thank you, viewers. Thanks for logging in, and please do log in now and then, and you will find such interesting issues on bharatshakti.in.